Okay, so I have to tell you about the time that I called the police on my own roommate and then realized I was the one who was about to get arrested. You want to know the worst part? It wasn't even drugs. I wish it was drugs. At least I would have been rich, but this time it was something much dumber than drugs. So picture me broke, fresh out of college, scrolling for apartments, and everything is $800,000 a month for a room the size of a microwave, okay? And then I find it. I finally find a real room in a real apartment for like half the going rate. And listen, when something is half the price, your brain should go, why? Why is this half the price? What is wrong with this place? You know, something has to be fishy and just kind of fucked up about this place that it's half the price. But my brain has never protected me once in my life, so I was like, okay, this looks good. The guy renting it, let's call him Dustin, because that was his name. That's his actual name. I'm not trying to protect him. He wronged me. I don't care. He seemed normal at first. Friendly, maybe a little twitchy, you know. He told me the one rule, which seemed fine, which was you can use the whole place, just never go in my room. And I was okay with that. I was like, yeah, I totally respect the privacy, you know? Let's just keep to each other's rooms. You know, I have nothing to do in his room. There's absolutely no reason for me to go in there and snoop around. I'm not that kind of person. So I move in and immediately things start to kind of be off. Dustin has no job, at least not the job that I can see, but Dustin has cash. Dustin has a lot of cash. He fans himself with cash. Counts it at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. which should have been my first red flag, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, you know, it's okay, I guess. You know, he probably has rich parents or something. But then there were visitors, right? People who would come by, never come in, but Dustin meets them at the door, you know, quick handoffs, they leave, all hours, and I'm telling myself, oh, maybe this kid is just popular, you know? Maybe he has some kind of gig going on, maybe he's like selling tickets to something, he's a reseller, I don't know what's going on, I'm not gonna, you know, go into too much details, but turns out he's not popular. Nobody is that popular at 3:47 in the morning on a random Tuesday. And then the second red flag, well, the third red flag, honestly, should have been the packages. Regular people order some packages here and there. You know, if you're a female, I don't know why I said it like that, but if you're a female, I guess, you know, you could, sometimes there's a lot of packages, but there were so many packages. Like, I'm not kidding. Every single day, boxes piling up by the door. And here's the thing that made my stomach drop, okay? They were addressed to like 6 different names, and none of which were Dustin. Okay? And at this point, I've constructed an entire narrative in my head. You know, I am certain my roommate is a drug dealer at this point. Like, the signs were just obvious, okay? So I did what any rational adult does, which is absolutely nothing helpful, and just surveilling, you know? I was just gathering information. I was just trying to stay out of his way, because honestly, I watched too many Breaking Bad episodes, and I do not want to end up like one of the low tier actors that just, you know, are there for a couple of minutes in the episode. So I started keeping notes, you know? Times people come by, and at this point I'm starting to wonder, and I'm like googling how to tell if your roommate is a drug dealer. By the way, very unhelpful. I would not recommend. I was doing that at work, by the way, so I would not recommend that either. I'm walking on eggshells here, right? I'm rehearsing what I'll say when the SWAT team kicks the door in, starts smacking me and Dustin around, and I have to explain that I just live here. I'm antisocial and I never even talk to my roommate. It gets so bad that one night I'm fully sitting in my room with my fingers over the sell button. Do I report this? Like, do I call the police? Do I let the SWAT team swoop in right now and get Dustin? I don't know. Am I compliance by just existing here? Am I going to prison for a room I found on Craigslist? And then one afternoon, Dustin's out. I do the thing. I open the forbidden door. I break one and only rule that Dustin told me not to break. Sum it all up, it wasn't drugs. The room, floor to ceiling, was bags, handbags, designer bags, like hundreds of them. Louis this, Gucci that. For one insane second, I'm thinking my roommate is just a guy who really, really loves purses. And then I pick one up and the logo is slightly wrong, you know, the stitching's a mess. And it hits me, you know, they're fake. All of them. And at that point I was relieved. But then, you know, a second later I'm starting to think, wait, this is still illegal. So Dustin was running a full counterfeit operation out of his bedroom, and I was paying half price to live next to the whole operation, to the cash, the handoffs, the packages, the fake names. He was buying knockoffs in bulk and reselling them as real online. And luckily my roommate wasn't a drug dealer. My roommate was a purse guy, a felony purse guy. And I'm standing there almost relieved, you know, like, oh, thank God it's just crimes about bags. Until I look at the shipping labels on the boxes by the door, and the return address is our apartment with my name on half of them. Basically, he'd been using my name on shipments. So if any of them ever get traced, the fraud, the counterfeits, all of it, it came back to me, not him, not Dustin. I wasn't his roommate, I was his fall guy at this point. I was the name on the paperwork. At that point, I never moved out of a place faster in my life. I packed in dark, like a raccoon, like a guy fleeing a crime he did not commit, which I didn't, which is exactly what was going on. I left a note that just said, you know, found a new place, smiley face, and I was gone before sunrise. And I thought that was the end of it, but 3 months later, I got a text from an unknown number, and it's Dustin, and all it says is, you still owe me for May. Also, do you know anyone who needs Rolexes? You know, Dustin is turning me from a fall guy into his own dealer. And, you know, at that point I was thinking about, do I even answer this message? What do I do? What do I say? But I remembered that I was trying to stay low-key, and that I actually told him I found a new place and just got out. So you know, my text was like sweet and short, and I just said no. That was it. It was no. And I thought that was the end of it. And at that point, I understood why rent is cheap. And I understood that at this point I would pay the full price for a microwave-sized room than ever live with a guy named Dustin again. Because this could have gone wrong in so many ways that I can't even imagine. So if you ever lived with someone secretly committing crimes, and I know some of you have, send me the story. You stay anonymous, I'll read it. Subscribe so the algorithm doesn't ghost me the way I ghosted Dustin. Love you. Bye, guys.